If you pay close attention to how natives speak in the past tense, you'll notice something strange.
When I was a lot younger, I remember there was a riddle that was posed to us.
One day I was hacking something, I was taking it apart.
And all that will be left of you is what was in your heart.
These were a lot thicker than the next batch.
Natives love to contract most things most of the time, but you'll never hear a native contract the simple past. Why? Last time we saw contractions in the present tense, so we know that I am becomes I'm, you are becomes you're, and so on. This is the past tense. If we contract I was to I's, that might work. But what happens if we contract you were? We get you're. He, she, it was. He's, she's, it's. We were, we're. They were, there. The reason we don't contract in the past tense is because the person you're talking to wouldn't know if you're talking about the present or the past. So we just don't contract. I was. You were. He was. She was. It was. We were. They were. Finally, something that's not complicated in English. Wait.
Why wasn't your sense of self?
Now, this wasn't always a problem
And it wasn't happening for me, my friend.
Not that people weren't smiling at Unsound 3 years ago.
Dry when they weren't planting.
And in fact, we weren't.
And those that hate you or weren't going to like you anyway, well, that's cool.
Yes, we still contract the negative. When we looked at contractions in the present tense, we learned that there are actually two options. So we have you're not and you aren't. She's not and she isn't. Because we have two options, we can still contract the past tense negative using the second option. I wasn't. You weren't. He wasn't. She wasn't. It wasn't. We weren't. They weren't. By the way, weren't you going to click that blue join button to learn how you can see your name up here? If you already did, great. But if you didn't,
in areas of the company that you didn't even know existed.
Everything, and that didn't work. And then he found this.
When you can discover what you didn't know would be useful.
I didn't just sit there with Mike, answer all the questions.
Interestingly, it didn't change the landscape.
Do not and does not can become don't and doesn't. So of course, did not can become didn't. The good news is that in the past, did is the only option we have. So all cases combine that with not to say didn't. Now there's one special pronunciation detail here, which is that because we have that D and that N right next to each other in the middle, you can actually pronounce this just like garden, where there's this sort of nasal plosive. Didn't. Didn't. There are also more advanced details, but we won't look at those in this lesson. All of this, of course, also applies to nouns, the TH words, and the WH words. Let's take a quick test, and don't worry, there are only 3 questions, but you have to answer before the timer ends. Number 1, which is correct? A, I's, meaning I was. B, what's, meaning what was. Or C, we're, meaning we were. Trick question, none of them are correct. Number 2, which is wrong? A, they didn't go. B, the cats are not here, meaning the cats were not here. Or C, that didn't work. The answer here is B, the cats are not here. That does work in the present tense, but not in the past. And number 3, which is wrong? A, I didn't do it. B, no you didn't. Or C, he's going, meaning he was going. Obviously, the third one is wrong, but what about answer B? If you remember from the last lesson, I said, but the one case where you absolutely cannot contract, ever, is if there is nothing after the verb. So B must also be wrong. No. This is a little tricky, but notice that there is something after the verb. Not. If you say yes I'm or yes you're with nothing after it, then that's just bad English. But if you say, no, I'm not, or no, you're not, that works just fine. We can also say, no, you aren't, or in the past, no, you weren't. Contracting not isn't the same as removing not. So it's still there, and it's still after the verb, meaning we can end with the contraction. We'll look at more contractions in the future. Literally, we also contract in the future, and you're going to want to click this video to learn more. See you there.